Welcome to the Box Score Sports Podcast.
So let's start our NBA exit interview with the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics finished 61 and 21 this season. They were the 2 seed, correct? And they lost to the second round to the Knicks, and they did lose Jason Tatum in this season. So let's start with our grade for the Celtics. What did you give them for a grade this season?
So it's hard when you get into these teams. I think because you're factoring in the whole season. So based on the injury and losing in the second round, I went with a C minus. Again,
Okay.
C being average for me. I mean, the regular season was good. They had again higher end historic level numbers on to off ratings, plus minus ratings. Um, they looked the part of a team that, although they coasted, which they probably should have. In parts of the regular season, looked a part of a team that was going back to the NBA Finals. But in all likelihood, they were losing in the second round without Tatum going down. And then Tatum going down factors into just what turned out to be a not good season, despite Al Horford hanging in there. Dude's like 97 years old and he's still out there, looking good for stretches. Peyton Pritchard, again, annoying little white dude, comes out there, does his thing. Um, and they're just getting, Sam Hauser again. They just kind of manufacture these guys to play Celtics ball, that five out, get up all the shots. But in the end, losing in the second round and losing your best player kind of docks that the whole season.
Yeah, that's why I'm with you. My average was B. I went with B minus because of those things. Pritchard looked like he progressed. Mentioned that Hauser and Cornette. Cornette's a free agent, but they look like that they could be role players and help the Celtics move on from some of these big contracts. Like they can rely on those guys if they need to. But yeah, the cons were, to me, the Tatum injury, getting eliminated in the second round. They were down. They were going to be down 3-2, right? So
Three
you're
one.
yeah, 3-1, 3-1. My bad, 3-1. So even worse. And I did put KP was also sort of a con this year. He only played 42 games. I know he was coming, off the injury, but even in the playoffs with whatever illness he was dealing with, it was just like he was a shell of himself. So um, B minus because the goal for the Celtics was the NBA Finals at the very least, and they didn't get there. And it didn't look like they were going to get there even with the Tatum, like you said, even with the Tatum, if Tatum would have stayed healthy. So I'm with you.
Just kind of fell apart. I think they got a little complacent, and which happens again. It's hard to repeat,
Right, correct.
and you can see why.
Yeah, and that's why Michael Jordan's the greatest. Okay, let's go to you ready to move on to the next part? Okay, let's do our off-season focus, which has kind of got blown up. Mine did, which was like their focus should be getting underneath the second apron. I wrote down Drew Holiday's contract, KP's contract, White's and Brown's contract. Doesn't matter anymore. They are under the second apron. They're at 203 million. So they're below the second apron. They do have two picks still in this draft, the 28th pick and the 32nd pick in this draft. Key free agents, Horford and Cornette. So, Clint, what do you think they do moving forward with already trading KP and trading Holiday?
Well, they met the first one. They're under the second apron, which is important. They could still, work something out to even get out of the luxury tax. That would take some work. I don't know if that's as high a priority. Obviously, they had to get out of the second to prevent their pick from getting frozen. So I think from here they'll just kind of play the landscape. You never know with the Celtics. You know, I heard interest in Jalen Brown with the
Right.
Jazz. I don't know what that's actually legit or we're just throwing names out at this point. But you never know with the Celtics. They're a really smart run team. So I think they are just playing. Um, they're just playing the odds in this case, and to be able to get rid of Drew Holiday and Porzingis, and they actually picked up two second round picks in doing so, is just like makes my brain hurt
Yeah, mine too.
of some of the incompetence of other teams in the league. Um, when you factor in that like Atlanta just basically gave up a first round pick to get rid of Terrence Mann, which is
Yeah.
15 million a year, let alone 30 million from each Holiday and Porzingis. So they're really smart. I think the desperation is gone. They got to the second apron, and now it's if someone blows them away, I have no doubt that they would trade Derek White if they got value for it. I think you'd have to blow them away to get Jaylen Brown, but I think there's other guys. Sam Hauser, another guy, what is it, like 10, 11 million he's got. I think if someone wanted him, they're smart enough to be like, look, even though the East is bad and we could be good next year, we're not winning it. So we have our own pick in 26. The chips fall where they're going to fall, but let's maximize what we can right now.
Yeah, I don't think they need to go full tank mode. And in fact, if I were them, that wouldn't be my focus. Even if you can kind of just stay pat. If they brought Cornette, so let me ask you this. So if they bring back Cornette and let's say Horford's like I am 97, 98 years old at this point. I can probably play, you know, 15 to 20 minutes a game, backing up maybe someone like Cornette. If their starting lineup is like Derek White, Simons, Brown, and then Cornette, and then whoever, maybe Hauser at the four, or they have Niang as the four here in the Eastern Conference. How good of a team is that?
Yeah, I still think that team would be, in that 6-2, definitely play in range.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So I mean, you could almost just throw this team on the court, sign those guys, and then just throw this team on the court and be like, let's see what happens. And maybe Tatum comes back, and it probably won't happen, but like April, May, right? Like in that area, we could maybe make a run. Just see what happens. You don't have to force anything, but if I were the Celtics, I would almost stay pat at this point. And like, unless, like you said, a team blows them away with a certain offer. I think the Rockets are a team to sort of watch out for because speaking of good organizations and fleecing teams from certain stars, um, the Rockets have a lot of assets that they can make another big trade without hurting their team or demolishing their team. So that's another team to watch out for.
Yeah, the Celtics again. They're one of the organizations that I rarely are when they make a move, be like, wow, that's kind of dumb.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
like you said, I think they know. I don't think they're gonna like, holy cow, can we tank to get like a top five pick in this draft? But again, if they can, does Horford come back, or do they just say, look, you only got a year or two left, however long you want to play? Obviously, we're not winning a chip here. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe he's like can't think of the guy for the Heat. That was basically on the team for like 40 years. And they just kept
Haslam.
yeah. Maybe he's the Haslam of the Celtics, and they're just like, whatever you want, just come sit here,
Yeah, right.
come coach if you want when you're done. So again, the Celtics, I think if something opens it, they will go all the way down to get out of the tax and just totally reset that. I wouldn't be surprised if they work something to do that. Like now that they somehow magically got two extra second round picks, they just throw them in there and be like, hey, who wants Sam Hauser? We got a young guy that we think can, I think they drafted another white guy that can shoot last year too. So they're really well run. Basically what they pulled off was like magic the last 2 days. So, of all the teams, I don't doubt that the Celtics will pull something out that makes sense.
Okay, so speaking of pull something out that makes sense, why don't we talk about their long shot? Does that sound good with you? And I know this is kind of on the fly because, of course, I had a really cool three-team trade I'm going to throw at you anyway, but like what did you have, or do you have a long shot that you thought the Celtics could have done or might do moving forward?
Yeah. So fortunately, mine totally wasn't blown up, but to just get the basis of it, basically, it was the Nets trading 8 to the 76ers for Paul George. So the Sixers go back 5 spots, but they unload Paul George. The Sixers are now at 8. Sixers trade 8 and another asset to the Celtics for Derek White. Then you have Derek White in the back. Grimes probably goes or you move on from McCain. But the Celtics end up with the 8th pick and a future asset for Derek White. Then
Okay.
they get out of everything and
There
they're
you go.
young with an extra couple picks. And, again, then, I think the Celtics crop up into the play of what if Giannis wants to go next year when you have, all these extra assets they can go.
Yeah, okay, I like it. Interesting. Especially if they just want to blow it up. But I just think like the only concern I'd have if they keep trading these pieces, like, okay, when Tatum comes back, who's going to be left? You still need a roster when he comes back. But yeah, that's an interesting one. So I did have a couple trades here really revolving around Holiday and KP here. They already got traded, but let me throw my three-teamer I had out at you and just let me know what your thoughts are. This is a ridiculous trade, but I was really proud of myself to get a success on this. Um, so the Celtics would have received, okay, you ready for this? Moody, Post, Eubanks, and Norman Powell. So those four guys. Now, a lot of expiring contracts, so they would only have to pay them for a year less money. The Warriors would have received KP, Dunn, and Kobe Brown, and the Clippers would have received Holiday, Heald, and Jackson Davis. Do you follow me there?
Yeah, that would be great for the Celtics too, because again, those guys are expiring. You can just pass the rate through. I mean, they could technically do that with Simons if they really don't want him. They could just simply do what the Blazers did and probably trade him for a future first and be like, cool, we just passed right through all of this. But that's a good one of the both of those, all three of those teams getting guys. I mean, minus the Celtics, they don't probably care all that much. Just get off money and be able to get assets.
Yeah, I just thought, yeah, that's why. And then like the Warriors would have added a big in KP to put next to Green. Holiday, the Clippers wanted Holiday the year the Celtics traded for him, so you put him next to Kawhi and Harden and hope it works out. But that didn't happen. Now the other thing, like they could because they only have about 4 million. They got the veteran minimum. They got a 22 million trade exception, which I don't think they'll use, but they're only like 4 million. Uh, there is, a world where they could just trade maybe like Simons and Hauser for Cam Thomas of Brooklyn, and then they would be like that would save them like 15 million, and Brooklyn would receive, you know, those two guys plus maybe a pick, like the 28th pick or the 32 pick. Just another way to kind of reduce spending, but also adding a piece on your team that could help you just see what you can do next year. I think it would fit a little better just because then you can start Pritchard next to White, so instead of having him come off the bench. So that's uh that's just a, a trade I thought of real quickly as a long shot.
Yeah, I think, and that's why part of me, like you said, I don't think they blow it up, but part of me also thinks like, if Tatum doesn't play next year, by the time he comes back, Derek White's like 31 years old, and again, players don't age the same. But
Right.
if you're thinking logically of it, what is he gonna look like at that? He's another one similar to Drew Holiday. Like they're probably not gonna fall off a cliff, but they're probably not gonna age great because of the style that they play with physicality. White, maybe his shooting can stay a little consistent, but so it wouldn't surprise me if they did that and kept Simons and be like, well, Simons can be our two guard. He's young. He's more on that timeline. And what we get with White, we can replenish as we go because they'll be on the other side then, and there'll be teams that need to get rid of some of their guys.
Yeah, true. And wouldn't you say White and Pritchard are more alike than they? So you okay? Yeah, no, I agree with that. Okay, anything else on the Celtics?
No, I need to talk.
Okay. Thanks so much for watching this clip of the Box Score Sports podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter or X. And we'll talk to you guys real soon. See ya.